Welcome to the virtual debate, live from the Weber Center of Performing Arts, and I'm Lee Roche, moderator for tonight's mayoral debate. To our audience, tonight's debate is brought to you by La Crosse Independent, by La Crosse Local, with a special thanks to the Weber Center for hosting tonight's event. We also want to thank the Dillon Overhouse Productions and Mike Makes for their providing the live stream for tonight's event as well. And to our candidates, I would say welcome to this debate. And I have to say, this is a little bit of a turnabout for me because with both of you, this is the first time I get to ask the questions. So, in terms of the ground rules, so we are going to follow a process here where we have some listed questions that have been developed by the production group of this debate. And I'll go through each of those with you, and you'll have 2 minutes for responding. And if there is something that is directed at the other candidate will have an opportunity of 30 seconds to counter that for a rebuttal. At the very beginning, we will allow you each 2 minutes to make introductory remarks and also closing remarks at the end. So whoever is selected to go first on the introductory remarks will go second on the closing remarks. And there will be an opportunity for audience questions. And I would say this to you as audience members, please enter your questions into the comments section and they will be sorted through. We won't have time to include all questions, but we're going to select 4 of them, and those questions will come from the audience, and I'll be directing them to you. And again, the 2-minute time frame, 30-second rebuttal will also apply. So now we're ready for the introductory remarks, and I'm going to go with you first, Vicki.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, La Crosse Independent. As some of you know, I'm a former journalist, and so supporting another voice in our community is very important to me. So thank you, La Crosse Independent, for hosting this. Thank you, Lee Roche. I appreciate you doing this. And I wanted to start with my why, because that's why everyone is tuning in. Who are you going to pick and what motivates them? So as I mentioned, I was a TV reporter here in town. I've worked with the La Crosse Builders Association, 400 direct competitors all pulling together to move their industry forward. Moved over to Seven Rivers Alliance, which was a collaborative organization that blurred 3 state borders, 13 county lines, and worked towards the greater goals of all. And then I moved over to the Chamber of Commerce, where I led 600 businesses, most recently through COVID, getting them all of the information that they needed. I've also volunteered in our community, whether it was Habitat for Humanity, Boys and Girls Club, Women's Fund, La Crosse Symphony, and so I have enjoyed my connections to this community. But it was 1 year ago, almost close to the day, it was February 20th, my husband was diagnosed with cancer. And at the same time, as many of you know, March 17th, the business community shut down. And so while my husband was going through some pretty intense treatment, I was providing assistance. And it was this community that rallied and supported me and our family in the most incredible ways. And as the mayor position came open, I realized that all of these skills, all of this leadership, all of this collaboration that I have done, that it is my time to serve and to pay it forward, because I see the good that can happen in this community when we rally together. I see the challenges that our community faces, and I know that I can be a great mayor moving La Crosse forward so it can thrive forward together. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Vicki Markison. Mitch Reynolds, your turn.
Well, thanks so much, and thanks to La Crosse Independent, La Crosse Local, the Weber Center for hosting our production team, and certainly my opponent for being here tonight, Lee Roche. I really appreciate you stepping in and being the moderator. I am just thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to be someone who the community has looked to provide an opportunity and a choice to lead this city forward. It's been such an extraordinary ride. I'm so grateful for everyone who's gotten involved in this race, and by that I mean certainly our volunteers, but also all of the people who have supported any of the candidates. I mean, the 10 candidates who showed up to want to be the next mayor in the city of La Crosse. It really says a lot about those who want to serve our community like I do. I was struck by when Tim Cabot, our current mayor, decided he was going to not run again for another term. Somebody called and asked me if I'd like to run for mayor, and I immediately said no. And then I thought about it, and I realized that I had a lot to provide the city of La Crosse, and we were at this moment, this pivotal moment of change and of challenge, and that I had the collaborative and cooperative skills, the ability to moderate differences and mediate divisiveness and move our city forward in a way that was going to be beneficial for some of those who are the most marginalized and the most vulnerable. When I was collecting petitions, I collected a signature from a man named Ronald. And Ronald had just recently gotten an apartment. He had been homeless. And I was asking people, what are the most important issues to you? And Ronald said to me, please help the homeless. Ronald gave me a sense of just how important it is for the mayor of our city to connect to people on the streets of La Crosse, people within the city of La Crosse. We're here to serve the people of La Crosse. We're not here for some existential idea of growth or development. We're here to serve people, and that's what I'm here to do. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mitch. So we'll start with our first question, and I'll alternate who responds first, back and forth. So the first question will be to both of you, but you'll respond first.
Okay.
So what is the biggest challenge the city of La Crosse faces in the next 4 years? And how will you work to confront it if you are elected?
Okay. Well, thanks, Lee. I would like to go back, and I'd like to ask our current mayor what he thought was the biggest challenge 14 months ago. Back at the end of 2019, I would like to have asked Tim Cabot what he thought was going to be the biggest challenge in the upcoming year. Because the truth is, he would not have picked a pandemic. He would not have picked police protests in the street. He likely would not have talked about PFAS contamination on one of our nearby communities. And yet, here we are. And so the idea that we can identify what will be the biggest challenges for us moving forward in the next 4 years, it's frankly, it's unlikely. There's some hubris there if one believes that one can do that. The truth is that the next mayor that is within the city of La Crosse is going to have the ability to have the nimbleness to move from strategy to strategy as the times change. The next mayor of the city of La Crosse will have to have the agility to make decisions based on new information, to develop new strategies, to analyze risks and move forward. Without doubt, the biggest challenge we face right now is overcoming the pandemic and the recession that's resulted from that, and helping our families and our businesses and all the individuals in our community deal with that particular challenge right now. But as we progress, next year it might be something entirely different. It might be something that we don't even know about yet. And we have to have the ability to understand how to adapt to change and to lead the city forward while adapting to a changing environment.
Okay, thank you, Mitch. Vicki.
Thank you. We know what our challenges are right now. We have small businesses that are still not at full capacity. They are hurting, and when they hurt, the people who work for them hurt. There are people needing city services at a time that our budget is fiscally restrained and challenged. We have to look at the eviction moratorium that is about to happen. We have to be thinking about shared revenue coming from the state. Are we going to get that significant portion of our budget? And then we have to think about the mental stress that is happening and the tension that that is causing in massive numbers. We have to be addressing these issues. We know they exist now. And I could sit here and say, I'm going to create all new programs for you, but we'll talk about this. I've seen the budget. It is strained. They've had to cut some fees. We have reduced room taxes. We've cut 15 people out of the library staff. We've brought in one-time revenue. It was a tough budget, and they still had to increase property taxes despite not wanting to do it. We know those challenges are ahead of us just in this year alone. But there's hope, and it gets back to where I started. We have some department heads that have some very innovative ideas, but more importantly, we have nonprofits that can pull in federal dollars, they can pull in state dollars, and they can pull in your dollars. And that is how we're going to solve a lot of the issues that are restricting us in this coming year. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Vicki. Your response actually is a segue to this next question here. So looking at the current city budget,
Yeah.
Where do you see an opportunity to adjust spending, and can you be specific in your response?
I
Vicki?
think that's mine, yeah. So we just saw some significant department cuts. Nearly all departments had to cut their budgets. We also are continuing to provide essential services, police, fire, road repairs, water, and sewer. We have to rebuild our quality of life. That is what took a hit in the budget. Our parks and rec and our libraries saw significant drops. Those are the pieces as we provide those essential services that we start to rebuild. And the amazing thing is talking to some of the department heads, they know how to work together, and they also have some innovative ideas about how we can turn some expenses into revenue. So I'm excited to talk to the department heads and some of the City Hall employees about how we innovate during this time period. We have to look at our debt service between essential services and debt. That is a significant portion of our budget. Perhaps there's some restructuring we could do around the debt services, but we also have to gain efficiencies. So during COVID, City Hall has turned to a one-stop shop down in the lobby, and they plan to continue that. So we have to look at, is that an efficient model? How do we make that more efficient? And many in City Hall will say that it's about breaking down silos. And when we break down those silos, we can gain those efficiencies and look at ways that we can better adjust our budgets. And so I also am very interested in creating a public review of the budget. A lot of people don't understand the constraints on the city and the balance that has to happen between the income and the expenses and what services do you look at. So creating a public review process for that budget is very healthy and very beneficial. And I will also say, as part of my campaign, I do not believe in increasing our property taxes. It's the number one thing I heard going door to door. And so we have to be looking at what are our sources of income and also how do we reduce those expenses.
Okay, thank you, Vicki. Mitch?
Well, I would say going into the job as mayor that when we begin to budget for 2022, because that's what we're talking about at this point, is that nothing is off the table. There are any number of reallocations that can be made. You can make some adjustments throughout the budget. Obviously, that we had a number of very hefty cuts to the library and the staffing there. The number of layoffs there was extraordinary. There were, I've heard a lot of complaints from people in the community who were frustrated by the level of cuts to the library, but not cuts to other departments. So I think all of that needs to be evaluated, and that's part of what the job of the mayor would be, is to look and as we go in, and honestly, I would have to go in without preconceived notions because, frankly, once you get in onto the 6th floor of City Hall, that perspective may change. But as always, getting as much feedback from department heads and from people on the streets in La Crosse as necessary so that we're providing the services that people need to get back to a healthy and relatively normal life. And that means providing appropriate funding to operate our parks and appropriate funding to make sure that we have library services and hours that are beneficial for the people in the city of La Crosse. Those library services are so frequently used by not only our children and our families, but also by those people who really sometimes just need help finding a job. And our reference librarians have done an extraordinary job of doing that over the years. So I want to make sure that we understand that while we're looking at budgetary limitations, that again, nothing is off the table. Everything should be considered as we move into 2022. I also want to make sure that that not only that's part of operation budgets, but also capital improvements. You know, we've got a fire station where our female firefighters still don't have a shower. And I'll make certain that that gets done without question. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mitch. Third question. As part of your preparation to become mayor, how many common council meetings have you attended in the last year? And what did you learn from watching those meetings, assuming you've attended at least one? And you're up first.
Well, thanks, Lee. I have attended one city council meeting, I think, in the last year. And I decided to run for mayor in mid-December, and I think the city council meeting I attended was in February. I spent 16 years at WIZM being a reporter, and for the bulk of that time covering what happened in City Hall. I spent 16 years covering mayors. I was there for 4 mayors. I was there when John Menninger finalized the annexation deal with the town of Campbell, when John Menninger formed the alcohol task force for the city of La Crosse. I was there when Mark Johnsrud fumbled the Mr. D's redevelopment deal and the annexation of the State Road Elementary. I was there when Matt Harder worked through his ethics hearings and provided his surprise veto on the budget. That's as mad as I've ever seen City Councilman Doug Happel ever get. I've been there for Tim Cabot and his Sundown Proclamation and the formation of the Human Rights Commission and presiding over possibly the greatest period of expansion and growth in the city of La Crosse history. I haven't been a passive observer. I've analyzed decisions, I've frequently commented on them, written about them, and certainly learned from them. And this has been, I don't know how many hundreds of city council meetings I've been to. City council, committee meetings, public works meetings, meetings in the bowels of City Hall and in the basement of the police department. I've learned quite a bit, and something I can certainly put to use on day one.
Okay, thanks, Mitch. Vicki.
Yes, thank you. As I said, I came here as a TV reporter, so for 4 years I covered City Hall, specifically to the questions. So I'm going to beg a little bit of forgiveness because I did have a husband with cancer and a business community to take care of. So I did attend the January meeting, and I also attended an Economic Development Commission meeting since declaring I was going to become mayor. And what was surprising to me was it hasn't changed. In fact, I do appreciate that things are being done online, but it's extremely clunky to download an agenda, find a link that isn't it might or might not be a hyperlink. It's clunky, and a lot has changed, and that's the problem. So a lot in our world has changed. And the January meeting, I was very surprised to see that the Home and Fire Department agreement was not covered in the media, and that is a very significant collaborative element. We as City Hall have to make it easier to engage. And so not only have I covered the City Hall happenings, but I've been at that podium providing testimony. I've advocated to City Hall members, similar to many of you out there wanting to get heard. And it is not the easiest thing to do. You have to know that all the work actually happens in a committee and how to go find the right committee and how to talk to the right city council members. And I believe that we have to change the City Hall in terms of how we communicate out, because people are becoming more and more disengaged with government at times that we need them to lean in and to provide feedback. And so I would really like to look at how we are creating our own platform to communicate all of the important things the city is doing so that we can engage more people in government.
Okay, thank you, Vicki. So our fourth question. As we've seen the increase in large flood events locally or with recent events in Texas and the wildfires out west, climate change is a rapidly increasing threat to our future. What can the city do to be much more aggressively reduce its carbon footprint, and while at the same time preparing for a future that's likely to involve more extreme weather events? Vicki, you're up first.
Of course. Well, this is a great question because it impacts many of us that have children out there. What we do now impacts our future. The city has a sustainability plan, and I intend to continue with that. So here's the pieces that make it great. First of all, it has the county engaged. We all talk about collaboration. This is an area we can easily collaborate with the county. There is currently a survey to look at energy use of what we are doing in our homes and how that plan can get updated. There's efficient energy use that they're looking at in our facilities and the amount of money that looking at that reduces. And fleets, there were just 4 electric hybrid buses that were purchased, saving 19,000 gallons of diesel. Product use it calls for, education of our citizens. So how do we conserve water? How do we reduce solid waste? How do we increase recyclables? How do we look at alternative transportation? And all of this has cost savings that come with this sustainability plan. But I will also tell you that at the Chamber, I had the honor of taking tours of some of the leaders in our community. We have Gunderson that is off of the grid. We have Western Technical College that was creating programs that helped with energy efficiency in homes and buildings. And we have to make sure that as our climate changes, we of course have many homes in the floodplain. Many of you have talked to me about this. Luckily, we have engaged, the city has engaged SEH, which is a local company, to create what they are calling a flood hazard mitigation plan that should help. And then last but not least, FEMA and the DNR are key partners in this conversation. I have been to Washington, D.C. I have advocated for changing our floodplain designations. I will continue to have conversations with Ron Kind and Johnson's office and Tammy Baldwin's office so that we can ensure that our voice here in La Crosse is getting heard. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Vicki. Your turn, Mitch.
Sustainability is such an essential part of us moving forward in a city together to make sure that we have a future for our children, our grandchildren, and that the future is one that is not only something that makes our community livable, but is also an example for others to follow. We can lead as a community to do that. And one of the key aspects of making sure that we follow through with our sustainability plan is a sustainability coordinator. And this is a individual position that's been talked about at length for City Hall, and something or someone, an office that basically serves as a project manager, if you will, to make sure that we're following through on our sustainability promises that the city has made, completely renewable by 2050. One of the key aspects for our homeowners is to do a thing called on-bill financing for home improvements. And what this does for you is this helps you make improvements in your home in more in new windows perhaps, or insulation, or more efficient furnaces, or appliances. And it's a newer idea, but something that's been tried elsewhere and something that's being talked about right now in La Crosse City Hall that I would like to follow through on. And essentially you're financing the improvements in your home through the city's water utility. You pay the water utility in your monthly bill, and then you can improve your home. It saves money for you. It provides us a renewable and sustainable future, and in some ways everybody wins. So beyond that, purchasing electric vehicles, we worked on buses. We're working on some heavy equipment, some electric heavy equipment, and some cars for the people in City Hall to get from job site to job site. These are essential acts that we can undertake right now to make sure that we're moving forward in a sustainable future.
All right, thank you. So, who would you name as your political role model, and why? That's your up.
I kind of want to say Pete Seeger here because, and he's not really a political role model in some ways to a lot of people, but someone who was essential in moving America forward during a very strenuous time through the Great Depression. Pete Seeger was out there with his banjo traveling from place to place and singing songs and gathering people together and bringing the spirits of a nation up, and also providing support for workers and providing support for the environment at the time, which was revolutionary. If I want to look at our local political scene, I'll say John Mettinger over and over again. John Mettinger was an extraordinary mayor who always kept people first. He made a lot of people angry while he was doing it, but he was charitable, he was tenacious, he was hardworking, and he fixated on the idea of making the lives of the people in the city of La Crosse better. I was always struck by how many little things that John Menninger did behind the scenes to help people that he never sought credit for. I've been a fan of his since I met John, and I don't know how many years ago it is now, 20 years. And he has forever been that leader that has, again, not only helped the city progress forward in some very measurable ways, but also always kept the people of the city of La Crosse in mind to move the city forward. And that's something that I treasure about John. I think he's been a great example for leaders to follow. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mitch. Vicki.
Yes. I'm going to say that my role model are the women who preceded me in government. They are trailblazers, and I look at them as being that first person paves the way for so many to follow. And they stood there and said, we have a voice. It matters. I would love to see people from the BIPOC representatives that are adding diversity to our voices there. But when we add voices, our government is better as a result. And so the people, I could name the names. They know who they are. They have been the ones that have called me and said, Vicki, why did you word that invitation that way? That was very derogatory. And I love that feedback. They have been the ones that have called me when I have taken issues to City Hall, and they've given me that great feedback, or to the county board. They have given me that great feedback. But most importantly, they encourage me as well. And they, as I was announcing that I was running, they were very clear of saying, this is a tough road ahead of you, but we need more voices like yours in government. And I thank those trailblazers. They are my role model as I move forward.
Okay, excellent. So what role do you think the city should play in supporting and strengthening the arts and creative sector in the community? And do you have any specific policy proposals to better support the arts in La Crosse? And you're up first.
I am. I have several friends who are artists, and the pandemic has been awful for artists, including performing artists. I had one person, I had just met her, and she said, I feel guilty asking people to buy my art during a pandemic because they have so many essential things that they need. And my response to her was, people need mental relief, and art is meant to evoke emotion, and maybe what they need right at that moment is her piece of art. And she said that is the best message that I could have gotten, and she keeps putting her art out there. So I believe in art. I understand the creativity that it brings. I understand that we need arts and culture to attract talent to this area. We have people that want to move here if we can make it a thriving community. And I also know that the performing arts, the symphony, the Weber Center that we are in here, they have been decimated. And these are things that evoke joy in our lives. So first and foremost, we have to get our performing arts centers back up safely when we are able, in a way that we are able to. Second of all, we have to get ArtSpire back. That is a branding component for our community. And bringing people here and recognizing that we have a very artistic community is very vital for all of us. I'm very pleased that we're sitting in what could be one of our solutions. The Weber Center here is a great example of public and private partnerships that can help support the arts. And last but not least, I'm also very happy to hear that the Arts Board is still being fully funded by our city, and that's the way that we keep moving this forward. The one piece that I would really encourage, particularly at least for the next year moving forward, is that as those art projects move forward, we're doing it with local artists, because that's how we get our economy back up and running, using local people.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. I am really pleased to be here in the Weber Center and in this district that we have in this area where there's been so many great performances that I've gone to, and Midwest Music Fest has been one of those great events that La Crosse has been involved in over the years, as well as Artspire. And I really appreciate the work done by the United Fund for Arts and Humanities and the Arts Alliance, and certainly the creation of the Arts Board not that many years ago has really promoted this concept of art in the public square, and having groups of people, because we need to have art. We need to be able to express ourselves, and it creates an environment where people can grow and develop and feel great about their community. And we are going to get there. We're going to have a time when we can have more performances in a wonderful theater like this, and performances on the street where we can gather and we can listen to great music, and we can go to art shows, and we can do all that. We're going to have that. But one of the key aspects that we need to make sure that so that the people in the city of La Crosse really buy into these concepts of art is not only important for the soul, and not only important for us as just culturally, but also important for economic growth. Arts are a thing that draws people to a community. Art brings people in, and it makes a community someplace where they want to live, and that fosters a certain level of prosperity and growth that helps the entire community. We need to be able to communicate that more to the city of La Crosse, and my goal is to make sure that we continue to adequately fund the Arts Board, but also to make sure we communicate what their mission is, so that the rest of the community understands just how important it is for the city of La Crosse.
All right, excellent. So we've heard a lot of talk about systemic racism over the last 6 months or so. What would you do if elected to move beyond symbolism and into action to uplift people of color who live in the community? And what specific policies should we implement in La Crosse to address racial inequalities? And who would you consult with to make sure those policies will hit the mark? It's your up.
Well, thanks so much. And I have worked very hard to make sure that I have a better understanding of the challenges our BIPOC communities face within the city of La Crosse. And there are specific areas where we can make changes and we can help. Our whole community can gather together and find ways to bridge gaps. In a conversation with a group of moms, the Southside Moms group, not that long ago, I was in a church basement, and they were talking about the things that are important to them. And these are African American women or white women with children who are either African American or identify as biracial, and that's their group. And they were asking me to help them with dealing with housing discrimination. Well, we can do that. We can find ways to better enforce rules about housing discrimination. They were asking me about how we can solve some of the food desert challenges that exist within the city of La Crosse. You know what? We can do that. We can find a way to use CDBG money to fund grocery stores in our islands or the pockets of the city that don't have access to groceries. We can do those things. We can institute a citywide broadband network so that the students of our schools have access to internet at home. What we found out during the pandemic is that 15% of our children don't have that. And they struggled. They struggled to stay up with their classwork because of it. We can have a city broadband network. Those are specific policy goals and implementation methods to implement ways to bridge those socioeconomic gaps and to really reach out and help our BIPOC communities.
All right, very good, Mitch. Thank you. Vicki, your turn.
No one should feel discriminated against. No one should feel minimized. And yet, it is happening in our community. And certainly, I don't know what it is like to be a person of color, but I do know what it's like to be the only woman in a room. I would make jokes going, I have an executive bathroom because I was the only one who would use it. I know what it's like to be asked, what are you going to do when you have children during a job interview? I know what it's like to have after I have a child, to have someone call it a paid vacation. So we have a lot of ways we need to improve allowing diversity of voices in our community. And a very wise woman who I respect said to me that we need to look at not being the savior, but how to be an ally. And as I moved into my role at the Chamber of Commerce, I certainly recognized we needed diversity of voices. And I made a list here. It's like the Oscars. I don't want to forget a name. So Cecil Adams at the African American Mutual Assistance Association. I had a great conversation with Thomas Harris at UW-La Crosse about how we bring in more diversity into internships. I've invited the Hmong community to come and talk about their culture. I've hosted diversity council meetings so that we can better connect our businesses to these great resources that the Diversity Council provides. I've attended Waking Up White meetings, and I have met with Alicia, because we have to remember the LGBTQ community is also one that has a voice that needs to get heard. I also recently watched the Shoulder to Shoulder Interfaith Network, and they were specifically asked, that's the Islamic community, they were asked, what do you want to see in a mayor? And they said, we want to see a mayor who is open and is willing to continue meeting with us. And so I pledge, done, I will keep my door open to all of these communities, because I really see the role of City Hall is to empower, to encourage diversity, and certainly to work with the committee inside of City Hall to make sure that we are addressing some of the voices that do not feel heard.
All right, thank you. So this is our 8th question, or the prepared questions. If you are elected, paint a picture for us what La Crosse will look like in 4 years. If you are successful in implementing your vision, and how will the city have changed, and what will remain the same?
It's mine, right? Yes.
That's right.
I have said this, it's on my website, that I want a mayor that casts a longer-term vision than what our problems are right now. Because when you cast a longer-term vision, people can rally around it because you understand what you're moving towards. So we all know we have this hidden gem of a community. It is a great place to work. It is a great place to live. It is a great place to play. And when you start to say, how do we continue to be recognized for that? Because all of the metrics that surround that will attract people to our community, then everybody knows what we're working towards. And again, there are measurable components of it. And those are all great things. So the best place to work and live and play talks about what kind of job potential is there for the people living there? What is the cost of living? Is there affordable housing? Are there all types of housing so we can house people from their first time renting, perhaps is even the homeless, all the way up to their upgrade and their senior living? We can look at things like the education levels that people are obtaining. We can look at the quality of our schools. We can also look at alternative transportation that we are providing. There are very clear metrics as to how you start to become continuously recognized as the best place to work, live, and play. We have incredible nonprofits here. We have, of course, the government. We have collaborative entities that can work on this. We have a business community that all want us to achieve these goals, and we can unite those. We want people choosing La Crosse. It is not happening now. They're moving to this area, and they are not choosing our city. We have to change that. We have to become the place that they want to live. There are amazing things, amazing groups in our community, the Outdoor Recreation Alliance, working with the Parks Department to build incredible trails. This is a lot of work, and I know, based off of the incredible generosity of our community, that we can get there, we can thrive forward, and we can do it together.
Okay, thank you, Vicki. Mitch, your response.
Thanks. We've been the beneficiary of some really fantastic planning for the city of La Crosse, and it's helped us really create future plans that where we're going to see some, I think, incredible changes in the coming years. And whether these things happen in 4 years, beyond that, maybe before that, when we look at the development of the River Point District, and we're looking at potentially shovels in the ground in the summer of this year, that's we're going to see, in a few years, we'll see buildings there. We'll see that vision of the River Point District come to fruition for the city of La Crosse, and that means a mix of residential and retail and commercial buildings there, along with waterfront access and easy walking access to the downtown. The public market, I don't know if we'll see a public market within the next few years, but it's going to be right in that area as well. A public market has a potential to be transformative for a community, especially in that downtown area, but all throughout the River Point District, connecting all of that. The Highway 53 planning that has gone on will help greatly beautify and really increase the just how inviting that whole corridor into the city of La Crosse is. I think it's going to be fantastic for the city of La Crosse moving forward. The Imagine 2040 planning that's gone on will help us really develop the downtown area of the city of La Crosse. Look, there's so many other different planning that's going on. Highway 53 moving off into the north side, really addressing some of the housing issues that we have, with improving the quality of housing, with improving the levels of affordable housing that we have, by really addressing the floodplain issues that we have within the city of La Crosse. We're going to see some significant improvements in just housing, and that's really going to drive people to want to live within the city of La Crosse, and we need that. We need quality affordable housing to do that, and we need to really be very focused on just how important our outdoor recreation all the facilities are, and how much we have to offer here. And I think that's just going to get better over the next several years.
All right, excellent. So we are now in the part of the program where we're going to be responding to questions from our audience, and we have some questions that have been submitted. So the first up is from Joelia, and she's asking, has either candidate been in support of the north-south corridor? If so, why did they support it? And what evolved in their thinking to change stances on it as a candidate for mayor? And you're up first, Pitch.
I don't support, I think with the north-south corridor, I'm assuming it's a construction-based, I'm guessing the question is about a construction-based model of north-south corridor. One that we have, it's been a focus of conversation over and over again. Within the city of La Crosse, part of referendums, or referendum back in 1998, I think. I don't support a build-first model for a north-south corridor. We've made that very clear. The city council has most recently made that very clear last year, 2019. But I'm not in support of that. I never have been, and I won't be. We can make improvements to transportation to make sure that we are effectively moving people in and out of the city of La Crosse, but we don't want to build roads through the city's marsh. We don't want to add lanes just to make it more effective for people to leave the city or for people to live outside of the city and commute in. So we have to provide services for them, can continue to incur that cost while they live in municipalities far and wide. And we don't need to do that. I'm not in support of a build-first model for a north-south corridor, and I never have been. I guess I don't know if I've had an evolution in that regard, other than I do appreciate the ability to go into the bag of tricks and pull out everything from variation of schedules for our businesses, additional transit, as we have talked about, some human-powered transit or human-powered facilities that people can ride on to get to work. There's all sorts of different routes that we can take, really honestly improving the quality of housing and affordable housing within the city of La Crosse. I mean, simply just more people are going to live within the city and work in the city, and there just won't be as much as that traffic in and out of the city of La Crosse.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Vicki, your response.
Yeah, when I first moved here, As I was a TV reporter, I covered this as a story, and I remember the referendum question very well, and the vote that happened. And as many of you know, the Chamber of Commerce was one of the organizations that was pushing for the 5B1 alternative, as it was phrased back then. So I moved to the Builders Association, moved to Seven Rivers Alliance, moved to the Chamber of Commerce, and the road project emerged again. And it became clear as we were going through the process, there are still issues with traffic, and many of us can understand that the DOT, that's what they do, is they build roads. But it became clear to me during the process, while we have an enumerated project, there is no funding to pay for it. And what I will tell you is there was a large employer in our community who was pushing for a stronger stance on moving a project forward, and I pushed back and said there's no point in creating this division within our community because there's no funding to move it forward. So I still believe that we do not have the funding to make that project happen. And again, it's not worth bringing it up until that happens. It is important to have an enumerated project because it keeps conversations at the state level around solutions for our community. And as other alternatives open up, we have an enumerated project to have in the pipeline. But what any elected official will say is, do not lose an enumerated project because you will not get it back. So if we want the DOT engaged in any sort of solutions for our community, that enumeration is an important talking point with the Department of Transportation.
All right, excellent. So this is a question from Courtney, and she wants to know, how has your professional background prepared you for the position of mayor? And you're up first.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Sorry, Lee.
How has your professional background prepared you for the position of mayor?
And it's mine, yes. So my professional background, I am so grateful for my communications, my journalism degree. Obviously, the journalism degree I got from UW-Madison has a lot of integrity involved with it. It is a key essential to summarizing a topic and being able to communicate in ways that people understand. I have been blessed after I left journalism because I met my husband and realized I couldn't move on to other markets. I am blessed to have been taught by incredible people at the Builders Association. They were very patient with me, taught me budgeting, taught me how to bring people together that are direct competitors in ways that form the greater good. They were very concerned about the integrity of their industry, and that really cued me up to the Seven Rivers Alliance. So Seven Rivers Alliance is all about collaboration. It's about putting that big aspirational goal out there and uniting around it, because that is what blurs borders. So as our city starts talking to our surrounding communities about boundary agreements and sewer, I, first of all, know a lot of those people because I have interacted with those governments. But you start with things that you have in common, where you find greater good. And then last but not least, I can't ignore the Chamber of Commerce. I bring the business community to the table. So as we look at possibilities like this great public-private Weber Center partnership, we will thrive by bringing the business community to the table. They love our local community. They want to see it thrive along with the rest of us. They want us to see it advance. And I bring that to the table as well. So I am very grateful for my communications, my leadership skills. I think it has queued me up well, and I am ready to pay it forward.
All right, excellent. Mitch.
I have a long history, as many people know, as a journalist here in the city of La Crosse. I spent 16 years at Midwest Family Broadcasting. I was a news director there, and certainly hosted a news and talk program on the air there for many years. I spent a lot of time analyzing, first of all, a lot of information and gleaning pathways forward from it. I spent a lot of time mediating conversations on the air and finding ways to get people to talk together and finding value in the various types of ways that people were communicating. there is definitely an opportunity for us to listen to each other and find areas where we can unite, where we can bridge the gaps that divide us. And part of my professional life was doing just that in multiple conversations for 15 years, speaking with a variety of people on the air in our community. For the last couple of years, I've been the operations manager for Whole Tree Structures, and it's a sustainable woman-owned B Corp that works with small dimensional round timber to build structures, and through that, working with or doing the budgeting and for capital budgeting and for operations and managing people and negotiating contracts and doing risk analysis and working through the whole entire process of developing a project, overseeing it to its completion. It's going to have to be part of the job of the mayor of the city of La Crosse. Certainly, my education, having an MBA doesn't hurt. Having an understanding of business is something that will benefit the next mayor very well. Thanks.
All right. So this is from Jacqueline. Jacqueline wants to know, has either candidate ever made a donation to a political candidate? And if so, who did they donate to and why? And Mitch, you're up first.
Let's see. As a journalist, we just didn't donate to candidates. I've never had a sign in my yard, never had a bumper sticker on my car. I won't say that about my wife. She has done a lot of political donations. So there has been donations coming from our family. Personally, I have to admit, I honestly don't remember. I mean, those are records. Obviously, you can look that up. But I don't. Nothing comes to mind off the top of my head. I don't know if I've ever donated to a political candidate, honestly. But we certainly have. My wife certainly has donated and has certainly did her best to get me a Russ Feingold sticker on the back of my truck one year, and I told her no. But it was just not something that I could do. We could never take part in campaigns. We could never. It's part of the ethics of journalism that we've discussed. Is that the essential part of being objective or remaining objective is making sure that we can have that objectivity when we're dealing with candidates for office, as well as organizations that are engaged in campaigns. And it's very difficult to believe that you have that, or to presume that you have that objectivity when you are advocating for, whether that be with signs in your yard or bumper stickers on your truck or campaign donations. So I have to admit, I wasn't always a journalist, so I'd have to look back a ways and try to dig that one up. But in the last 20 years, no.
Okay, thank you. Vicki.
Yeah, I would have to say after journalism, there may have been a contribution when I was with the Builders Association. To be honest, I couldn't even tell you who it was, because it was just part of the actions that we took at the time. So I think it goes back that far. I will tell you, similar to Mitch, so we have 3 current voters in our household. We have a 17-year-old who's coming up on voting, and we have a 13-year-old who's probably the most engaged in political discussions in our entire household. So my husband has given to political campaigns, but what's more important, I think it was one time, to be honest, and what was really important to us this past summer. So we have 5 people in our total household that we are educating on voting, because they are coming up of that age. I will admit that we had a yard sign in our yard for the very first time in 25 years, because it was a conversation around my children and who employed my children and who they wanted to support. I will also tell you there was a lot of back and forth of one kid liked it, one kid didn't like it, and so but it was not a financial contribution.
Okay, thank you. We have one more question, and this one is from Karen. How will you address the shortage of affordable housing in the city? And you'll be up again first, Vicki.
Affordable housing, the city has a lot of tools available to it to work on affordable housing. And those need to get maximized. I think it is great that, as some of us know it as Train Plant 6, so that property that has some potential to develop some affordable housing around it. And actually, as I think about that, I'm using the wrong TIF. Regardless, one of the TIF has expired, and there is some opportunity there to create some affordable housing around it. We have a shortage. I certainly hear from people saying that we need more affordable housing. The college students, this is a top priority. I know there are some great conversations to have with people that can develop that type of housing, and we have to find the ways to make financial sense to do that. But the city has tools at their disposal. There's an entire individual and several individuals that can make that happen. There are available lots that create affordability for building new construction, and there are also, again, those federal opportunities that we can maximize, bringing in WIDA with an H, Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Authority has some tools that we can utilize to create this entry-level, what I would call entry-level housing. But I'm also concerned, really quickly, with our entire housing stock. So I look at housing as a journey. We start with people renting, we move them into hopefully home ownership, they upgrade, they may upgrade again, and then they have to enter, at some point, probably senior living. And we have shortages in all areas of that journey. And so affordable housing is certainly in demand, but there are also other areas that we have to make sure that we're addressing as well. And as some of these new developments happen, I'm very encouraged to hear that we're going to be building housing along with it, because that helps create more supply for what is a limited quantity.
All right, excellent. Mitch, what are your thoughts?
We have absolutely a need to improve our housing stock within the city of La Crosse, and that is going to be something that's a focus, as we've talked about here tonight. It's going to be a focus when I'm in office. The city of La Crosse has spent a great deal of time and energy doing just that. HUD funding that is routed through the CDBG, the Community Development Block Grants, and through our community development administrator, through our housing replacement program, and through a number of different ways that we have actually replaced a lot of the housing within the city of La Crosse in recent years, updating it, making these newer homes that replace some of the, well, frankly, dilapidated places that needed to go because they weren't kept up. And it's going to be, we do have some great opportunities coming up. The TIF District number 6 that was recently retired, it was being retired this year. The City Council has recently agreed to extend the TIF district for another 12 months so that we can gain the fund, a revolving fund, $1.7 million of a revolving fund that will be used to incentivize affordable housing in our communities, so that we have the ability to create developments where developers not only want to build a market rate housing, but also have an incentive to add affordable housing in the mix. Because right now, as it stands, if you're a developer and if you're building a building and you're at whatever $200 a foot, and suddenly you're at $200,000 for a unit that is, well, frankly, the cash doesn't flow. There's not a return on investment. And with these incentives that we're getting through this this TIF extension, we'll be able to add certainly a great deal of money to that pot, and that's something that's underway right now. And I'm looking forward to watching that as it progresses and as we add affordable housing to the community.
All right, thanks, Lynn. Well, it's now time for closing remarks. You have 2 minutes each to summarize your positions, and we're going to start this time with you, Mitch.
Well, thanks so much, and thanks again to everyone at the Weber Center for hosting us here tonight, the production crew especially, and certainly La Crosse Independent, La Crosse Local, without whom this would not be possible. Lee, thank you again for stepping in as a moderator tonight, a wonderful job, and I appreciate my opponent and us being able to be on stage and talk to the people of the city of La Crosse. This has been a great, it's an honor to be here, frankly. And I am just so pleased to be able to speak to all of you tonight, and we'll be doing several more of these. So we'll be able to have other opportunities to share our beliefs, and you'll be able to interact with us as well. I'm struck by the people that I've spoken to within the city of La Crosse, and in the last several weeks, I mentioned the moms group that I talked to. Rochelle is the woman who asked me to help them with housing discrimination and job discrimination within the city of La Crosse. She said, you have to be out there and talking about what it is that we need. We need the mayor to be on our side. I think about when I spoke with Tracy Littlejohn of the Ho Chunk Nation the other day, and we talked about the need for better housing and the socioeconomic struggles of indigenous peoples in our community. I think about when I had the conversation with Song Zhang the other day, and we were discussing how Hmong children in our community struggled so much with not being in school and a lot of folks not having internet in their homes. And I think about the people that I've talked to who are vulnerable and homeless in our community. And when I spoke to Alicia Schandelmeyer at the center about how all of these things are exacerbated if you're part of the LGBTQ community. And I want to make sure that we're focusing on these, on all of our people in the city of La Crosse and creating a community that's prosperous for all of our people. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Vicki.
Yeah. I am grateful for this as well. There is nothing like seeing and hearing and honestly finally seeing Mitch eyeball to eyeball for the first time. And so it is a very different experience being here in person, and I look forward to meeting many of you that are out there. I am very grateful to La Crosse Independent for this opportunity. And as I think about what do I bring to the table, I have spent 25 years listening. I have spent 25 years using my strength as a problem solver and finding solutions. So as I hear and see around me that there are not enough women in leadership, I create LeaderCast Women, and 190 people show up in this very venue here, as a matter of fact, because they feel empowered. When I hear that there are floodplain issues that FEMA can help with, I am going to Washington, D.C. and advocating for solutions. When I hear that there are needs in our community, I'm turning to our nonprofits who know these areas best, whether it's homelessness or providing vouchers to women for whatever it is that they need through the Women's Fund, and rallying people around causes. I am proud to serve on many of the boards in our community, and also, to be honest, on a lot of marketing committees, because that is a needed skill set. And so I have learned a lot about our community. I'm very proud to represent all of them as I come up here and say, I'm going to take everything that you have taught me, everything that I've learned. I'm already learning a lot more. I see the problems that need to get solved. I want to learn, hear more voices as we form solutions together. So thank you for listening to this. Thank you for listening to both of us and the differences and hopefully probably some commonality too of what we need to work on as we move forward. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Vicki Markison. Thank you, Mitch Reynolds, for being part of this really engaging and insightful opportunity, and this opportunity for the community to get to know you a little bit better. This is a challenging and important time for the city of La Crosse, and a special thank you goes to both of you for bringing your talent and your ideas forward at this critical time. I wish you both the very best in the upcoming weeks, and I look forward to working with you. And to our audience, thank you for being part of today's program, and a special thank you goes to the La Crosse Independent and La Crosse Local for bringing us together and giving us this opportunity to get to know these outstanding candidates a little bit better. I would also like to thank the Weber Center for hosting us, Dylan Overhouse Productions, and Mike Makes for providing the technical support for the live stream production. Good night, and thank you all.